Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to the latest special show with Last Bell Boxing. Today we're joined by Sohol, head of sport for Channel 5, I believe is your title, Kaj.
Yeah, that's one of my titles, yeah.
Yeah, thank you for joining the show. You're a very busy person, as I've researched you, with voluntary work and obviously your businesses and your day job. So, firstly, thank you for joining. Really appreciate it.
Yeah, no problem.
We're joined with Andy as well, who's a regular from the show. Andy, give us a wave.
All right, guys.
So, Kaz, don't want to keep you too long, so I'm going to launch straight into it. Where did it all start in terms of, I know you're at the BBC for over 20 years, so how did you get into it and you know?
Yeah, so, well, a bit like both of you boys, you know, I'm a Nottingham boy, Nottingham born and bred, Forest fan, Notts cricket. I was, you know, two things I loved when I was younger was music and sport. And when I got older, I realised that I wasn't going to be a professional in either of those. I became, well, actually not even older. I knew that fairly quickly. So it was about finding a way in to do something that I really wanted to do that didn't feel like a job. I think most people don't really know. I mean, I didn't even know these jobs existed, to be honest. And it was a chance meeting with somebody who knew somebody who worked for the BBC who said, well, you know, things you're interested in, you know, have you ever considered doing this? And I thought, well, that's interesting. So I started off volunteering, doing hospital radio at the Queen's Medical Centre.
Wow.
Yeah, which was two parts of the job. One was you went around the wards and collected requests from people, which was nearly always the power of love, I seem to remember at that time. all anyone wanted to hear in, what would it have been, about 1990 or something like that. But the other part of the job was to go down with a commentator to Forest and I won't say commentate, but it was more like talk around the games. And so I did that, and that opened my eyes because I met a lot of the journalists who were there on the ground and working at games. And then I went for a job actually at the BBC for a trainee thing in London. I didn't get it, but the guy who would end up being my boss gave me a 3-month attachment. Just said, you just don't have enough experience, but come for 3 months. 3 months became 6 months, became a year, became 2 years, and then finally got a job there after about 2 years, I think. But it took a lot of application. I think I must have applied for about 40 different jobs by that point. But yeah, 2 years down the line, then I started doing football. I did a lot of football, and then moved into TV. I did more football there, other sports. So did World Cups, Match of the Day, Football Focus, head of football for Radio 5 Live. So worked with a lot of the commentators and the footballers. And then we went into another side. Part of it was basically working with young kids to see if sport could change lives. And that was something that was close to my heart because, you know, I think a lot of the kids don't realise what you can do. If you're not a footballer, you could work around a football club, you could be a physician, you could be a coach, you could work in hospitality. So we did that. And then about 10 years ago, started my own production company. So we now make documentaries, films about sport, all football, boxing, and also we run all Channel 5's sport in the UK.
So that'll be 10 Monkeys Media, wouldn't it, Kaj?
Yeah, that's it. Yeah.
I'll give it a plug for you, free of charge. So one thing that did strike me was, obviously you're just a normal young lad in Nottingham, growing up.
Yeah.
How accessible was it for you to believe you could gain that career in the BBC? Because myself growing up in Nottingham, that was something other kids do, if that makes sense. Yeah. You know, I never really believed that was a I didn't aspire. I didn't have the belief that I could reach that role. So how did you come about getting? You know, was it just hard work and dedication?
It's, you know, when people say this, they always like to say that it is just about hard work and dedication, but it's not. It's equally about people that might give you a leg up or might give you an in. I didn't even know these jobs existed. It was just a mate of a mate who said, well, if that's what you're interested in, you might like this. And then, you know, thinking, all right, well, maybe I've got some time on my hands. Maybe I'll do this thing at hospital radio, because that was suggested to me as a way of doing it. So without, I think in a way, it's a little bit easier now because you can do the stuff that you guys are doing now. You know, you just do it yourself, which is brilliant. it's like the days of punk, isn't it? Really, everyone's just doing it themselves now, and you can do it. But then you couldn't really. So I was lucky. I was just lucky that I got some people at the right time to help me and say, "Have you thought of that?" Because I hadn't, to be honest. I was a bit like you. I wouldn't even know where to start. I wouldn't know who to call, who to do, and then I don't know. There's something about when you're quite young where you sometimes don't realise how stupid you are, and you kind of ring people up. I would just ring people up who I didn't know, and think, yeah, they'll speak to me. And I look back at it now and thinking, Christ, what did I do that for? But sometimes that works, and as I said, it's probably about 40 applications in before it got anywhere. And an organisation like the BBC, the great thing about it is because it's regional, because it's local. That you can go in and you can do stuff. I know they get lots of people asking, but that's what makes the difference. It wasn't a worked out career path. I kind of stumbled into it and made the right choices, I think, at the right time. And when I get applications now from kids who want to go into the broadcast industry, I always look for what else they've done, because now there are courses. You can go to university and do a broadcast journalism course that you couldn't do. Certainly not in sport when I started out. But what I look for is what else you've done. Have you volunteered somewhere? Have you done something else? And that makes the difference, I think.
Yeah, I think you're being very modest in terms of stumbling into it. I think you've got a great message for the youngsters in Nottingham. I think you're a flag bearer, for want of a better word.
But you know what? There's quite a lot of people from Nottingham and the East Midlands in this industry. It's funny, actually. Like you think about if like the Sky's rugby commentator Miles Harrison, he's from Nottingham, and Nick Mullins, who does a lot of the rugby on BT Sport, he's from Leicester. John Rawlings, who you'll know does a lot of boxing. He claims he's from Leicester, but I'm not entirely sure. But there's a few of us around basically from this part of the world.
Yeah. So obviously you did quite a few different roles in BBC. You obviously interviewed commentators, is that right? I do feel like we're in a bit of a job interview here, Kaz. I'm sure it's a no from you, but any memories from that?
Yeah, well, it's something you learn. So we trained a lot of commentators on the way. So, it's one of those things, what works and what doesn't work. So it's good working with young people. So, we work with, all the guys on 5 Live now. John Murray's, the Conor McNamara's, Ian Dennis. These are Alistair Bruce Ball were all people that we took on. Darren Fletcher, who you know is the Sky, the BT commentator. Another Forest fan, by the way. Another Nottingham boy.
Never mind.
Yeah, another Nottingham boy. So, it's really good. It's a good thing to do. My job essentially is, I'm an editor. So I take what people have, the raw talent, and try and shape it into something that works better. Yeah.
So just moving on to your current role then as editor sport at Channel 5. Obviously, props to Channel 5 for the efforts they're making regarding live boxing shows. Obviously, you've had some big names on recently. Just thinking about the mechanics, obviously we're in an era at the minute where a lot of subscription channels are getting into boxing, the Trillers of this world, and safe to say DAZN. How difficult is it for Channel 5 to operate within that space?
Yeah, boxing is difficult because it's expensive. The bottom line is it costs a lot of money. I mean, the reason we do it is because we think that as a sport, there's a huge appetite for it in this country. Probably, at a peak that I can remember in many ways. I know people will talk about the 80s and the big audiences and ITV. That was true, but in terms of the number of quality boxers we have in this country, there's probably more than enough for 4 or 5 broadcasters to do what they want to do.
Agree.
And boxing's a bit weird though. Compared to all the other sports I've done, it's you always you deal with a governing body, and you buy some rights, and then you get the rights. Boxing a little bit is you have to make your own events to a certain extent. So, we'll work with promoters. And I think, in the past we've worked with the McGuigans, we worked with David Hay, and now we're doing a lot with Mick Hennessy. And my feeling always was that, if we're going to do boxing, we've got to do event. We're not going to have the biggest names because we can't afford them.
Yeah.
But what we can do is we can put on great fights that are proper 50-50 fights, and then try and build an audience like that, because we still have that commercial challenges that we've got to deliver an audience. So we've done it in the past. I think one of the things that we've been quite keen about to say in the past, like people who made their debut, it's like where the stars of the future come. So Tyson Fury made his TV debut on Channel 5. Carl Froch did.
So say you had Froch on for quite some time when he was with Hennessy, didn't you?
Yeah. And, it works for them because, and it's great, the money that's in there for Sky, or was for Sky, was for BT. But the difference is the audiences, where, it might be about 150,000 or something like that on BT, say for Daniel Dubois at the weekend. I can't remember what it was, something like that. But a Channel 5 show will get you, in excess of 1 million. So as a boxer, you might not get the money, but you get the exposure.
Yeah, and so, is that your main USP then, Kaj?
I think with a lot of boxers, it is okay. If I'm on the start of my career, I'm rising. They want, understandably, they want both. They want the cash and they want the exposure. We can give them the exposure, but not necessarily the cash. But with the exposure comes the cash with the other guys. So, hopefully one day, who knows, we might be in a position where we can keep these guys on the channel and find a way of making them the money they need to make elsewhere. I mean, the big thing for us in the last year is that, or the last 2 years now, is that our parent company is Viacom, and they merged with CBS in the States. So that puts us into the same table, the Showtime, which, we did the Gervonta Davis fight in the middle of the night in last October, which, would have been a pay-per-view fight normally, I think, but we put it for free. And that was the first sort of, first positive sign of us working with those guys as well. So I think there's a market. If we can find the fighters and we can find the right fights and convince the fighters to stay. And I think we got 2 or 3 guys coming through who I think are going to be, fighting for world titles at some point. And hopefully they'll be with us in the future. Yeah.
And you've had brief involvement with Mayweather promotions as well, haven't you? And Is that an ongoing relationship? Do you see it as?
I think so, because I think they're quite interested in the fact that with a lot of their fighters, they're not necessarily interested in overseas of just reeling in the top dollar. It's about exposure again. So to the Gervonta Davis fight, for instance, they wanted people to see him, and he is amazing. That was the thing, that knockout was quite something again. So it's something we'll try and keep on working with. There's enough promoters out there for us to do stuff with, I think.
I was going to say, the news that come out recently about Matchroom moving to DAZN exclusively.
DAZN
exclusively. That's left a big gap in the market. Sky have not made any massive plans. They've not brought a sole promoter in. There was something the other night about Top Rank doing deals with Sky for the pay-per-view stuff, which is obviously going to be early hours in the morning. But there's nothing come out to say that they're doing anything with the Saturday night events that currently Matchroom do.
Yeah, I mean...
So that leaves a real big gap in the market for you.
It does. I mean, the difficulties always had is the cost and the expense. If you're a sports channel, you can carry that because you're trying to raise subscribers. So you can, your event doesn't have to pay for itself almost because you're doing it on future subscribers. We're a little bit different. We're a commercial station and also we're a general entertainment channel. Yeah. So that shapes what we do as well to a large extent. Is that I'd say 50% of our audience is like you guys, committed, knowledgeable boxing fans. 50% of our audience are people who are just switching on and think, I like boxing, I'll watch a bit of this. So they don't necessarily have the in-depth knowledge of the boxers or can appreciate, the more subtle boxers. So what we have to put on our shows is probably a little bit different from some of the shows on sports channels. Is that we have to entertain. We have to have what we would call TV boxers on. So we need guys who kind of go out there and are a bit more showy and might throw more punches and might not be the same type of boxer who's very skilled. So I mean Stevie McKenna, who's one of our fighters right now, is a classic example of that. Stevie's just all action, throws about 100 punches every round, and he's just out there. And if you're not a massive boxing fan, you'll appreciate that just for the fight. So it's different, and I think what we do is different from what they do to a large extent. And they're quite often building up to a pay-per-view, which we don't do.
Yeah.
So our fights are a bit different to that extent, I think.
Can I ask you a question regarding? Do you see yourself working with the likes of DAZN on replay fights, regarding maybe showing the fights a day after or something like that to bring it to the terrestrial audience?
I think we wouldn't rule anything out really in terms of that. But I would say is the real value in pretty much all sport now is live.
I have to agree.
It does tend to be. The day, when we'd have lots of highlights on, and I think the value of highlights, because people get it anyway. That's the thing, they'll have seen it soon after it's been on one way or another, whether it's legal or not. You will have seen it. So wouldn't say no, because obviously in a big fight and you want to show it the next day, then it's going to do well.
Yeah.
But I think what we've got a really exciting stable of boxers now with Hennessy, domestically, plus the options we might have elsewhere. So I think we would look at really developing those guys in the next couple of years.
Yeah, and
Hennessy exclusively now then.
Yes, yeah. So he won't do anything with anyone else, but that's the way. You just got after them.
Do you have any other promoters come in? Have you got any other plans to bring in Cyclone Promotions, for example?
Not at the moment. I think for this year we've probably got another 3 fights with Mick and his team, and those will all be sort of promoted through John Pegg and Mick Henry.
Yeah. One of the frustrating things for me, and we talk about this quite a lot on our show, is exposure to the general public for what should be household name fighters.
Yeah.
So you've had Josh Taylor just recently become the first undisputed champion in England for quite some time, and no one knows who he is.
Yeah. Well,
which is a real shame. And he's signed to a promoter in the States where he's maybe now will get a bit of exposure on Sky with the deal they've just done, but he should be on everybody's lips, just like back in the good old days of Benning, Eubank and Collins and Watson and those sort of fighters that were getting probably millions of views. The audiences were huge back in the day. And I'm kind of hoping that we get a bit more like that from yourselves, in the future.
Well, you know what I mean. Josh started his career on Channel 5. We did his first 6 fights, and it just got to a point where purses were so big, they were beyond us. And we would love to get him back. I mean, the problem for us with something like that fight is it's the middle of the night. So I'm being perfectly honest. But from a commercial point of view, for this channel to spend that amount of money that you're going to need to get it on, to put it on at 3 o'clock in the morning, is when they don't spend really any money on airtime at that particular point. So it makes it really difficult for us.
Sure.
I wouldn't love it. I mean, I agree with you completely. It was just what he's achieved is crazy, and the fact that he's not, winning Sports Personality of the Year,
and he won't do because no one knows him.
And this is the problem when you get sport that goes behind a paywall.
Yeah.
Those guys we talked about, the Bens, the Eubanks, even Prince Nassim to a certain extent, they were on ITV free to air, so millions of people saw them, millions. Now you go behind a paywall, apart from pay-per-view, your normal fight might be 100,000.
Yeah, and that's why I applaud Channel 5, Kaj, because it must be madness in my mind, personal view, that Josh Taylor fights on Fight TV, a subscription product. Yet Mayweather versus Logan Paul is on Sky Sports. How can that be right? I understand from a commercial viability perspective. That's why it was on Sky Sports, and no doubt the numbers were brilliant, etc., etc. But I guess what I'm hearing, Kaj, is everything comes back to the budget. You've got to work within that budget.
That's pretty much it. And your BTs and your Skies and your DAZNs have massive budgets compared to what we will spend, because that's their day-to-day business. I mean, DAZN, that kind of just upped the ante, I think, for everybody as well. So it's great that boxers are earning so much money, but it does make it difficult for the average fan who might not want to. You know, I feel for fans. You know, you got to pay 2 different subscriptions, then you got to pay for the pay-per-view on top, and then you got to pay somebody else for a different fight. And I think, you know, it's really important that one of the broadcasters tries to bring something that's free. All right, we might not be able to bring you the very top bits, but you can watch fighters on their way up. And I'll tell you, Stephen McKenna will definitely fight for a world title in the next 2 years. He's just ridiculously good.
I mean, I've watched some Southern Area title fights, Kaz, that are really, really competitive and really, really good fights.
Yeah.
You know, so it hasn't got to be world level, has it?
No, I mean, we had one the other day with who was it, Casey Benjamin. You know, it was just a fantastic fight. You know, and you can get these if you match them correctly. You know, and that's what the challenge we've given to Hennessy and to John Pegg is, look, just give us competitive fights. And I think we had the Dilmagani Fonseca fight a couple of years ago, which was voted the best fight in Britain, you know, by Boxing News, anyway, one of the magazines. And we had the Shaken Pitters one with Spider Richards not long ago. Again, really competitive fights.
Right.
And we have to, and Sam Eggington's fight as well, you know, just recently, we have to find fights that are genuinely good to watch.
Sam's great value, isn't he?
Yeah.
Sam's just one of those. Every time you think he can't go any further, he kind of does a little bit more, and you think, "Oh, hold on, maybe he can." You know, maybe he can.
And would it be fair to say that that's a bit vice versa in a way, because almost Channel 5 are reaping the benefits of Sam's previous career, where he's got all that exposure from Matchroom and Sky, and now he's on your platform, and I'd argue Sam Eggington is a little bit wider known.
Yeah, I think he is. I think the thing is, you know, there are, as we said earlier, there's just so many boxers.
Yeah.
It's like Isaac. We've got Isaac Chamberlain. You know, he's injured at the moment, but he should be back in July the 17th, which is our next night of boxing. Yeah. And Isaac's just, you think, you know, he's as good as some of the other people that he came up with. Yeah. But there's just so many really good boxers in this country. It's astonishing.
Yeah, and then just finally, Kaz, I'm conscious of the time, and we agreed to keep it short. It's only right that we talk about the commentators on Channel 5 around boxing, bearing in mind your history. Yeah. So I think you've got a brilliant setup on Channel 5. I like Richie Woodall. I think Richie Woodall is absolutely top draw.
One of the best, isn't he?
Yeah, and you got Mark Pugash also doing, who again is a very good broadcaster. I'm sure you know from your time on the BBC. I noticed Carl Frampton dipping in and out a little bit as well. What are the plans moving forward? Is that a settled team?
We're getting to, so we just, in the first show we did this year, we've changed our production company. We're changing the way it looks, the way it sounds. If you watch on July the 17th, you'll see it looking, you know, a lot different. We have a guy called Radzi, who's our roving reporter, who used to be a presenter on Blue Peter of all things. Right. But, you know, is mad about boxing, knows everything.
Well, feel free to send me his details, Kaz, and we'll get him on.
Oh, yeah, I mean, you'll need about an hour with Radzi.
We can do that. It's not a problem. We can do that.
Steve Bunce is part of the team now as well, and I've known Bunce for about 20 years from BBC days. Gives you something different. We've got Jeanette Quache, who was the ex-Olympian, UK British Olympian, now a broadcaster again, boxing mad. Dave Farrow's our commentator, who I think is the best in business. Right, Dave. And Richie, of course, who is just, you know, Mr. Boxing alongside Carl Groves. We've had on as well. Who else we had on? I'm trying to think. There's been a few sort of people that we pick up. George Groves that we had.
George Groves, yeah. Well, being Carl Froch fans, we'll skip over George nice and quickly, shall we?
No, I found it a bit difficult to start with, but I'm forgiving him now.
Yeah. Well, it all worked out in the end, didn't it, Kaz? It all worked out in the end.
Absolutely.
You know, is there any plans to perhaps look at this at a different angle? I remember when I was a kid, amateur boxing used to be on TV quite a lot. They'd have ABA finals would be there, and you'd be looking at the next stars. You don't see any amateur boxing shown other than Olympics and World Championships.
Yeah, no.
And when it is shown in the Olympics, everybody loves it. It gets great views, really exciting. Is there any chance of seeing any ABA stuff back on terrestrial TV?
I think there is. You know, it's just about timing and when it is and where it is. But I think that, you know, I agree with you. It used to be on Sports Night, didn't it, all the time? and you'd watch it, and it was good. In fact, we're making a documentary film about Eamon McGee, the boxer.
Okay.
I was looking through lots of old footage from his amateur days and thinking, God, you know what? This was good, because you did see everybody.
It's so exciting as well, amateur boxing, isn't it? Because it scored from shots.
Yeah.
It's all action. 3 rounds of all action.
I'm a fan, and if we can, we wouldn't turn anything down really if we can find a way to work.
Okay, Kaj, I'm going to bring it to an end there. I'd like to just lastly say thank you for your time. Keep up the good work with the boxing. Hopefully we'll get you on in the future, in and about when the shows are announced. If you can spare us a little time, we'd appreciate it.
I'd definitely be on. And we got July the 17th is our next one. I've no idea what it is yet, but it'll be good.
So we can aim in and around that then, Kaj, if that's okay.
Will do.
No worries. Thank you for your time.
Cheers,
Thanks,
guys.
Coach.
See you later.
Bye.